ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome back to our Tuesday and Thursday series on Vaishnav Ninda. In the last class, we had been discussing about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's analysis or classification of Vaishnavas based on Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Mahaprabhu has classified the Vaishnavas. Firstly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had done the classification of Vaishnavas based on the Srimad Bhagavatam perspective. And then from Chaitanya Charitamrita perspective, that is according to Mahaprabhu, he does the classification. And that is based on how they take the holy name. One who takes the holy name is a Vaishnava. And one who takes Nirantar the holy name is Vaishnava Tara. And one who can instill faith in others to take the holy name is Vaishnava Pradhan. So that is how he does the classification. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur made some very interesting points as to about that for this taking of the holy name, there is no need of any initiation. And he substantiates this from Chaitanya Charitamrita. From the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, Bhaktivinoda Thakur establishes, and Prabhupada also in his purports we saw that how Diksha and Purushchara Vidhi Vina Achandale Namle Hoy Udhar. He can also be delivered. So this was one of the most important verses which we had discussion in the last class. Diksha Purushcharya Vidhi Apeksha Na Kare Jivva sparshe achandale sabha udhar. So this was the verse, and these were the verses he quotes for his substantiation of that, there is no need of diksha, there's no need for diksha to order to become a pure Vaishnava. And he substantiates from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we had an elaborate discussion last Tuesday on each of these verses, each of the verses, and especially Prabhupada's purports. And the most important purport was, this purport where, Eka Krishnam Kare Sarva Papashaya. But Prabhupada says what kind of name it should be. It should be offenseless chanting. That should be Namabhas. And I told it should be anything after Nishtha and actually Asakti, where that one name which is taken, it destroys all our sins. And sins will not return back also. So this is also the verse we saw. And the most important verse was this verse, which is a very long commentary of Srila Prabhupada. And we saw how Srila Prabhupada, proof after proof, we saw almost, I think, 8 proofs Prabhupada gives about how initiation is so important. And then he gives only one proof about, I think I'm missing it. Yeah, for one proof that there is no need of initiation. But why did Prabhupada start it? We discussed many reasons. One of the reasons is that I gave the example of how, in a heart operation, the patient has to be made ready. So there are some pre-operative procedures for which, the patient has to be ready to get to the heart operation. And if these parameters are not proper, then they cannot undergo the heart operation. Similarly, our conditionings are so deep. The chitta is so much vikshipta. Vikship means completely agitated and disturbed, that if we take to the holy names, we might not attain perfection without this Harinam Diksha and the Gayatri Diksha, the second initiation. And especially the second initiation is given so that we can engage in our bodily activities in Krishna's service, deity service, by which we can slowly purify the chitta. Ultimately, we can become qualified to, sit ekagra and take the holy name. And that holy name, when we take with a very attentive mind, we can chant offenselessly and get purified and then take Shuddhanam. So all this is a preparation. So this was one of the reasons why Prabhupada introduced this Harinam Diksha in the second initiation. Secondly, this pure teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is coming in the Guru Shish Parampara, although there is no need of Harinam initiation, Mahaprabhu did not give any Harinam initiation to when he was on the South India tour. All got liberated and went back to Godhead. But still, after Mahaprabhu left this world, the caste Goswamis had completely diluted the teachings of Mahaprabhu, and there were 13 upper sampradayas. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur fought, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur fought, even Srila Prabhupada fought. So he give authenticity and bona fideness to the parampara by having good standards. Prabhupada set up this first Harinam Diksha, 4 regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds, and Prabhupada explains that what is the process he has taken. So this is the second reason. And the third reason is we will continue to commit Namaparad and not understand the glories of the holy name, that it can give liberation. Not only liberation, it can give Krishna Prem. And we will not value it, what we have got. And this was happening during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time. Everyone in Bengal and Orissa is to take Nam. At the same time, the caste Goswamis were telling, do whatever sins you want to do, but just take the holy name. Ajamil, at the time of death, he took the holy name and he went back to Godhead. So he'll also go back to Godhead. So instead of getting purified, we'll get putrefied, and we'll go to hellish condition. So these were the many reasons why Prabhupada introduced very systematically, and especially, we are supposed to follow the Bhagavad Vidhi Marg, which is hearing and chanting and Srimad Bhagavatam Shravan, but we are not qualified fully for that. And that is why the Pancharatri Vidhi helps us to do this balance. Otherwise, the Bhagavad Vidhi itself is, it is complete in itself for us to attain perfection. But we are not Kali Yuga souls, we are not, especially in these ages, especially the age of technology, it is very, very difficult. So this is where we had finished our discussion in the Tuesday class. And then this is the next verse which I need to discuss among the verses quoted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. After that verse, even Diksha Purashar Vidhi Vina, A Chandale Sabha Hoy Udar, that is 108, this is 109. So let us discuss 109 verse. Anusanga phale kare samsare rashaya chitta akarshiya karaya Krishna premodaya. By chanting the holy name, Anusanga phale, one dissolves his entanglement in material activities. Kare samsara shaya. So this chanting again has to be Namabhasya chanting. After this, one becomes very much attracted to Krishna. Chitta akarshya karaye. The heart becomes attracted to Krishna. And thus dormant love for Krishna is awakened. Karaya Krishna premudhai. So to quickly take us from the Namaparad stage to the Namabhas stage, the first and the second initiation help us a lot. So that ultimately we can come to Namabhas stage, purify the heart, chitta, of all the contaminations, because Namabhasya purifies the heart and makes the heart pure. Chitta nirmal, correct chitta nirmal. It makes the chitta very pure. And from that pure chit consciousness, when we take the Shuddhanam, what will happen? We'll get attracted to Krishna and we will take up Shuddhanam, by which I'll attain love of Godhead. So this was a strategic program which all our acharyas knew and Srila Prabhupada knew. And that is why he, gave or he emphasized on, especially the Harinam Diksha, which is very, very important to have these standards. Otherwise, we will not value what we have got, the holy name. Now, this is not quoted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but this is the next verse after this 109. This is the next verse, but this is a beautiful verse from the Padyavali. Padyavali is an anthology of verses compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. It's an extremely beautiful verse where Rupa Goswami is glorifying the holy name. Ha Krishna Krita Chetasam Sumanasam Uchatanam Chahamsam Achandalam Mamukaloka Sulabo Vashascha Mukti Shriya No Diksham Na Cha Satkriyam Na Cha Purusharcham Managikshate Mantroyam Rasana Sprug Eva Falati Shri Krishna Matmaka. So this is a very beautiful poetic expression of Rupa Goswami where he has completely embedded the philosophy what Bhaktivinoda Thakur spoke and what we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In one verse, everything is there. The holy name of Lord Krishna, Shri Krishna Nama Atmaka, is an attractive feature for many saintly liberal people. Akrishta Krita Chetasam Sumanasam. So for the Sumanasam, saintly people, so Krishna's name is only attractive for liberated souls in one sense. We in the conditioned soul are not able to taste because we are afflicted by the jaundice disease of avidya. So that is our disease, but it is very attractive for the Sumanasam, the liberal people. It is the annihilator, Uchatanam, of all sinful reactions. Cha Amsanam. Amsanam means sinful reactions. And it is so powerful that, save for the dumb who cannot chant it, Amukha, it is readily available to everyone. Loka Sulabha, including the lowest type of man, the Chandala, Chandala. The holy name of Krishna is the controller of the opulence of liberation, Vashascha Muktim Shriya. So the holy name is so powerful that liberation is also controlled by holy name. Because by chanting this pure holy name, one of the qualities of Bhava Bhakti is Moksha Laguta Krit. And Prema Bhakti is what? Sri Krishna Akarshani and Sandrananda Visheshatma. So Mukti also completely is Tuchya. So that is the glory. It called controller of opulence of liberation. And it is identical with Krishna. When a person simply chants the holy name with his tongue, immediate effects are produced. Mantro yam rasana sprug eva falati. So, but ultimately, no, when we chant, we have the immediate benefit of, giving up our sinful life and taking up to spiritual life and following the regulative principles. But over a period of time, still we have not got ruchi. We are battling with our conditionings. And Rup Goswami in the Upadesha Amrita has spoken about it. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananu. Pittopatasya न रोचिकानु किंतु आदरात अनुदनम खलो एव जुष्टात स्वाद्वीक्रमात् भवति तदमूल हंत्रिम गाढ़ हंत्रिम. I don't recollect the verse right now. So the Swat Krishnamadi Charitadi Sukirtananu. Krishna's names, forms, qualities, pastimes are very, very nectar. But Pittopatasya Naruchikanu, one who's afflicted by the jaundice disease, cannot taste sugar candy. But Kintu Adarat Anudinam. If we with respect, that means attentively chant, offer respect to the Vaishnavas, and attentively chant Anudinam. Every day we chant Swadvi Kramat Bhavati. Slowly the taste will come. So, mantroyam rasana sprug eva falati. Slowly, a spiritual taste will awaken. At least a distaste for material life starts in the beginning of spiritual life when we take up to Krishna consciousness. Chanting of the holy name does not depend manag ikshate on initiation, pious activities, or the Purushacharya regulative principles generally observed before initiation. Na diksham, na cha satkriyam, na cha Purushacharyam. The holy name does not wait for any of these activities. It is self-sufficient. So this is how powerful is the holy name. Here it is very interesting, and it is so powerful that save the dumb who cannot chant it. Amukha. One of our sannyasis was in London, and there is a deaf and dumb association, and one of the devotees is to go and preach there. I don't know how he is to preach. And they had come to the temple, and of course they were dumb, but they could hear. They could hear. They were not deaf. So, they have their language by, I don't know how, what kind of language it is. Through body language, they understand. And this devotee had taught them the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Like Hare meant like this, Krishna means flute. So like that, Hare Krishna, he had taught the mantra, and by the body language, although their mouth could not utter the mantra, but from the heart, the soul is the one who speaks. The soul is the one who hears. The soul is the one who smells. The soul is one who tastes. Of course, now with the subtle and the gross instruments, but it is the soul. So these, dumb people were also chanting Hare Krishna, and they were making progress, and it is amazing. And this devotee in London was holding programs for them and explaining through their body language the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and they were taking up to the chanting, and there was transformation which was observed even in them. So this is the potency of the holy name. So Rupa Goswami, in a very beautiful poetic way, he has brought out this and the whole philosophy that na diksham, na cha satkriyam, na cha Purushacharyam. So that is as Mahaprabhu has told and Bhaktivinoda Thakur has told, he has established here in this verse. Now, the conclusion. This is the last verse. Athaeva yandramuke eka Krishna nam saite Vaishnav kariya tahar samman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then finally advised. Athavaya means now he's concluding. One who is chanting Hare Krishna mantra, Yandramuke eka Krishnam, is understood to be a Vaishnava. Saite Vaishnava. Therefore, you should offer all respect to him. Kariya tahar samman. So the whole discussion, again, I want to keep all of us in track. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had begun that among all kinds of offenses, Vaishnava Aparadh is very severe. And he gives what are the 6 types of offenses. And analyzing, we have to know who is a Vaishnava and what constitutes Vaishnava Aparadh. Now, to know who is a Vaishnava, first of all, he discusses, these 4 types of living beings. And the first 3 categories, that is Sadharan Jeev, Dharmik Jeev, and Brahman or Vaishnava Praya Jeev. If we don't respect them, we get sin. But if we don't respect Vaishnavas, we commit aparadh. So all this establishing then who are Vaishnavas from Bhagavad perspective he has discussed, and who are Vaishnavas from Chaitanya Charitamrita perspective he has discussed, and from Chaitanya Charitamrita now he is concluding anyone who takes the name of Krishna, he is to be respected, offered respects. Anyone who takes once the name of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Again, Prabhupada quotes Updeshamrit. So important it is that anyone, even if he is not taken up to spiritual practice, he is not a Hare Krishna devotee, but if he is saying Hare Krishna once, we should offer our respects in our mind. So again, Srila Prabhupada is quoting Updeshamrit. Srila Rupa Goswami states, Krishneti yasya giritam manasagriyeta. Dikshasti chet pranatabish cha bhajantam isham. An advanced devotee should respect a person who has been initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and who is situated on the transcendental platform, chanting the holy name with faith and obeisances and following the instructions of the spiritual master. So an advanced devotee should respect, that is a Madhyamadhikari should respect even a Vaishnava who just takes the name of Krishna once. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments that serving Vaishnavas is the most important for householders. This was a question which was asked by householders only, Satyaraj Khan. So, Vaishnav Seva is the topmost dharma for devotees doing service to Vaishnavas. Among the 4 categories of jivas, the Sadharan Jeev, Dharmik Jeev, the Brahmana or Vaishnava Praya Jeev, and the Vaishnavas, the 4th thing Bhaktivinoda Thakur says how we respect Vaishnavas by serving the Vaishnavas. So serving the Vaishnavas is a paramount, object for a devotee. In fact, it is the highest dharma, Vaishnav Seva. Whether a Vaishnava is properly initiated or not is not a subject of consideration. One may be initiated and yet contaminated by the Mayavad philosophy, but a person who chants the holy name of the Lord offenselessly will not be contaminated. Now here actually what Prabhupada is speaking is, okay, let me, Prabhupada, what he is speaking is what? About the Mayavad philosophy. Anyone can raise their hand and tell or can chat in the or send a message in the chat box. When Prabhupada is speaking here about the Mayavad philosophy, contaminated by the Mayavad philosophy, what does Prabhupada mean here? Now, those who have attended Harinam Chintamani seminars will be clear about it, I hope. So I want to know what is Prabhupada here saying when he's contaminated by the Mayavad philosophy. Anyone would like to answer or type in the chat box when Prabhupada is saying contaminated by the Mayavad philosophy? Who would like to answer? Anyone? Want to hear from someone. Anyone who has, yeah, there is some answers. Um, Still has some impurities of liberation. Krishna's and Krishna's name is different. And contamination of liberation, thinking soul is equal to God. Mayavad means they think God and Atma are same, and it's about getting one with God. Mayavad committing aparadhs. Yeah, many have given different answers. Uh, as all devotees practicing Krishna consciousness, okay, we have deeply embedded, without understanding form of Lord initiation, we have deeply embedded Mayavad attitude. Okay. Yes. Now, as Vaishnavas, we are personalists. We know that God is a person and we are worshipping Krishna by chanting and doing the Navida Bhakti. So there are different types of, Mayavadi contaminations or Mayavad philosophy. One is the Mayavad philosophy that, Jiva is one with God and ultimately merging into the impersonal Brahman is the highest goal. That is the Mayavad philosophy. But there can be different levels of Mayavad contaminations. And during Advaita Acharya's time, Advaita Acharya's sons, they also had this Mayavad contamination. Few of his sons, three of his sons, they started claiming that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in this world because of the call of our father, Advaita Acharya. So in that sense, Advaita Acharya is superior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that was the philosophy they propagated. So that is also called as a Mayavad contamination. So here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I will once again take a few minutes to explain. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions in Harinam Chintamani that if you take the holy name once from the mouth and it enters the ears, and if these syllables are spoken Shuddha or Ashuddha, you know, the soul speaking or hearing them will be delivered, and it is the conclusion of the Shastras, he says. Then he says, but one thing should be said about this chanting with Namabhas will bring the benefit slowly. If this kind of name which is taken, if it is with Namabhas, then it will bring benefit slowly. And by Namabhas, what will happen? Shubha, auspiciousness will be there in the form of the heart getting purified, and Prema will take birth after some delay, he says. Vilamban, And Namabhas does Papashaya, and it becomes one who chants Namabhash becomes by this Papashaya, he can take up Shuddhanam, and then he'll get Krishna Prem. So this is what he says. And then there is two faults he says. The faults of disruption. It's called as Vyavahita, Dosh. What is this? First is the aparad. Aparad is to separate. Separation of thinking that the holy name is different from Krishna is an offense. So when we are chanting, if we are taking Krishna's name, then we are fully focused in my relationship and Krishna, and there is no one else in that relationship. This is how we should chant. When I'm chanting, I and Krishna and no one else. Otherwise, it is a serious offense. It's a serious offense. This is how we need to understand it. This is what is namaparad, separation. This disruption, what Bhakti Thakur is saying, Vyavahita, separating Krishna from his holy names. Now, again, let me give you an example. I was explaining that when I am chanting, it is me and Krishna, and no one else in that relationship can come, no other thoughts. So when the Pandavas got married to Draupadi, we know that this is very unique case that husband can marry many wives, but a wife marrying many husbands is a very unique case in the Mahabharata, and there are also some cases in the Srimad Bhagavatam which is very rare. That's a different topic. But when she was married, Narad Muni came and set up the rules. that when Draupadi is with one of the husbands, none of the others should, come in there. And this was the rule which was set up. And it was said that once, I don't recollect, it just flashed me and I'm explaining now, that Draupadi was with Yudhishthira Maharaj and Arjuna's Gandiva was in that room. And there was some emergency, I don't know what it was, some war or something. Arjuna had to pick up his Gandiva and that's why he had to enter in the room. So he, broke that etiquette or that rule, what Narad Muni had set up. And because of that, Arjuna had to, as a punishment, he had to spend some time somewhere. I don't recollect what exactly is there in the Mahabharata, but it is there. So similarly, my example here is that when I and Krishna are there is nothing else, no other relationship. If you some other thought comes or you attend to something else, that means it is Namaprad. And I had given an example in our Harinam Chintamani seminars that how Loknath Goswami, and Narottam Das Thakur, his disciple, were sitting and chanting in Govind Kund. And one Brajvasi came in and he asked for some water. Narottam Das Thakur left his chanting and went to serve the Brajvasi. And when he came back, Loknath Goswami said, "You have no right to live in Vrindavan. Leave Vrindavan. How can you leave Radha Krishna's service and attend to some other service?" That was also service to the Vaishnava, Brajbasi, but he was serving through chanting the beads, serving Radha and Krishna. So our chanting is directly Radha and Krishna. Our chanting is directly serving Radha and Krishna. And that time, if we are attending to others or if we are inattentive, that is, we don't realize the holy name is not different from Krishna, then that is really a serious offense. It's a Vaishnava aparad. So this Nama Nami Bheda Buddhi, thinking that Lord Krishna is different from the holy name, this is an offense. This is aparad actually. And this, by doing this, if you chant Nama Aparad, then you'll make very, very slow progress. And there cannot be Krishna Prem. And second one he says is Varna Vevadan and Tattva Vevadan. So Varna means separation of syllables, which we don't do. We chant all the syllables, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. There is a explanation of Varna Vevadan, Hati Kari. So Ha and Ri, we get the benefit of chanting Hari, but it's separated by Thika. This is what is Varna Vevadan. But Tattva Vevadan is the Mayavadi contamination, which is there, the Mayavadi contamination. And this is what we should be very, very careful of, this Mayavadi contamination. So this is what Prabhupada is explaining here. Get contaminated by the Mayavad philosophy. And we know this famous story of Raghunath Das Thakur's life. Raghunath Das Goswami. He was with Ramdas Vipra. He was always chanting the name of Lord, but he wanted to merge with Lord Ram. So we might not be as Vaishnavas chanting, in order to become one with Krishna, but there can be subtle levels of contaminations of Mayavad philosophy. And we should all remember, we have come in this world to become God. And this is why we are here, and we are here from millions of lives. So the disease will be deep-rooted, and slowly with chanting, we will understand this, how deep-rooted is the disease. So that's why this contamination will be there. But one who's chanting Namabhas, he is able to realize the non-difference of the holy name and the Lord, and that's why he doesn't commit Namaparad. A properly initiated Vaishnava may be imperfect, but one who chants the holy name of the Lord offenselessly is all perfect. So even if somebody is initiated, he's a Kanishta, he'll be imperfect. But one who chants offenselessly is all perfect. Although he may apparently be a neophyte, he still has to be considered a pure unalloyed Vaishnava. So Prabhupada is giving the highest understanding that although there is contamination, but still, because he's chanting the holy names, we should consider him as a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava, pure, again, but still Anarth Nivritti has not happened. That's it. But still, he should be considered as pure Vaishnava. And I gave that example in last Tuesday's class. Anyone who has taken up to chanting of the holy names, he's a pure Vaishnava. But there are higher levels of purity grades. It is the duty of the householder to offer respect to such an unalloyed Vaishnava. So such an unalloyed is this neophyte also. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Ata eva. Ata eva is how he had begun. Yandra Moke Eka Krishna Tahara Samman. We should, offer him respects. So this is here where the discussion of the quotations what Bhaktivinoda Thakur had given. We went through each of these verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita with the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. Now the next theme, the difference between Sri Nam and Namabhas, and those who chant Namabhas are not Vaishnavas. This is interesting theme which will come up now. There is one message on the chat box which is a question, and I don't understand this question. They can ask Vriddhi Mataji. I'll unmute. You can ask. What is the question? So there is no response. So this question is, okay, there's one more question here. Yeah. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Guruji. Guruji, Vaishnava Seva is the topmost dharma. And then chanting of holy name is also important. And then we saw the example of Loknath Goswami. So like for us also, many a times it happens that we keep aside chanting and for thinking that doing Vaishnava Seva is greater. So like, so that is offensive.
Okay. Vaishnav Seva is the topmost dharma. But when we'll be able to do Vaishnav Seva is by chanting the holy names. Only by chanting the holy names, chanting the holy names is called as Nama Seva. So when we do Nama Seva properly, in a proper consciousness, and don't commit offenses, then we can realize the glories of the Nam, we can realize the glories of Vaishnavas. And with this knowledge and understanding, with this consciousness, when you serve the Vaishnavas, then that Vaishnav Seva will have lot of impact, will bring lot of spiritual results. But if you don't do, chanting properly, and while serving the Vaishnavas, you will commit mistakes and will displease Vaishnavas. So the foremost is what? Chanting the holy names. Chanting the holy names attentively, then we will do Nam Seva. Nam Seva is what? We realize that the holy name is not different from Krishna. And then we preach the glories of the holy name. And we understand the glories of the Vaishnavas. So all is embedded in Nam. So if we do Nam Seva properly, then we can do Vaishnav Seva properly. And while doing Vaishnav Seva, if we don't do chanting, attentively, then we'll be not attentive in serving the Vaishnavas, we'll commit aparadh. And when we commit aparadh, when we sit for chanting, we cannot attentively chant. So both are reciprocal in that sense. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yes, Guruji. Guruji, I had one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Haribol. Guruji, I have one more question. I didn't follow that Varna Vyavadhan, Tattva Vyavadhan, and Hatikari. I didn't follow that portion, what you said.
Okay, so this we had discussed in the Harinam Chintamani quite elaborately. But just I'll summarize. Varna Vyavadhan, firstly, there are two types of disruptions which happen in the chanting. One is disruption of separation, and then disruption about another thing what Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains is disruption of identities. Okay, I will just show the slide, this so that you are clear about it. So here, okay, first let us, if you Namanami Bhed Buddhi, then it is Vyavadan hai. Vyavadan happens. If you have this Bhed Buddhi, and then there is two types of Vyavadan. Disruption. Disruption in syllables and disruption in identities. So disruption in syllables is what that there is Hati Kari, Ha and Ri are there in the end. Although somebody is saying Hati Kari, Hati Kari, Hati Kari, Hati Kari, he is getting the benefit of chanting the name of Hari. But there is separation, Thika. Thika is separating it. So this is separation of syllables, which is happening. There is benefit of chanting, but it takes long time. Then there is separation of identities. Identities is what? That I and Krishna, what is our identity? I am spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. I am Anu Chetana, the Lord is Vibhu Chetana. So this identity has to be clearly established while chanting. And now I am in the realm of Maya. I am in the prison. And by chanting Krishna's name, I can come out of the realm of Maya and re-establish. I've lost my relationship with Krishna. I have to re-establish uh, my relationship with Krishna. So the relationship is broken from our side, not from Krishna's side. Krishna has not broken that relation from his side. We have broken our relationship. So if we are chanting inattentively, not focusing on the chanting, then we are not chanting the names, we are chanting broken names. So this kind of, is because of, not understanding the identities of the Jiva and the Lord, and in that Sambandha Gyan chanting. So these are very subtle kinds of, deviations which happen, Mayavad contaminations, which are there in the chanting of the holy name. So even Brahma, when he saw from his Hamsa, Krishna, he had this Buddhi Bhed, three types of Buddhi Bhed, it is said. Who is Krishna? Who is Krishna? I and Krishna are one. I am also controller here. So he is also controller. What kind of controller? I am also what? I and Krishna are one. So that's why he played a mystic game by he played a mystical illusion by stealing all the gopas and the castes. And Krishna. So these kind of buddhi bhed, subtle tendencies, even if Brahma has, and this is there in the Brahma Vimohan Leela, which Vishwanath Chakra Thakur writes in his commentary. Even if Brahma has, then what about we conditioned souls? So these are subtle tendencies which are there and which we should, understand to be very, very attentive in our chanting. That meditation is there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself gives it. Oh, he gives it in Harinam Chintamani. Okay, anyway, I will find out where exactly it is and I will tell that. That will help us to become free from this Mayavad tendencies in our chanting. Is it okay,
Yes,
Namataji?
thank you so much, Guruji.
Is it clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. There is one more question. There is one more question by Ashray Yoga Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Ashray Yoga Prabhuji. Okay. Any other questions anyone has up till what we have discussed now? Okay. So then let us go to the next topic. The difference between Sri Nam and, okay, there's one question. Okay, I have to unplug you. Okay, unmute you. Okay, I have unmuted you, Ashra Yoga Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. This is in connection with this.
Yes,
I'm audible, Prabhuji?
oh, your audio not clear. Your audio is not clear.
I'm audible, Prabhuji? Hello?
No, your audio is not clear. You'll have to type. You'll have to type and send the message. Then I will take up. Audio is not at all clear. So I will now continue with the next theme now. Okay. Nama oy nama bhasera partha ke vichara karibare ekhana avakasha nai. This is not the place to analyze the difference between the holy name and the reflection of the holy name. Nama means name, holy name. Nama bhasera, reflection of the holy name. Parthaka means vichar, to understand the difference, to analyze. Karibare ekhana avashak nai. It is not necessary to analyze here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying he is not going to analyze it. Samantare Vishesh Rupe say Vishera Vichar Kariba. I will analyze that subject in detail at some other time. So if you want to understand Nama and Nama Bhasya, then we are taking this Harinam Chintamani seminars and we are going to discuss this third chapter of Harinam Chintamani, which is very detailed chapter on Nama and Nama Bhasya. And the details of Nama Bhasya chanting is given because ultimately we have to cross the Namaprad stage and come to Nama Bhasya, which is very important because Nama Bhasya is glorious. By chanting Nama Bhasya, our heart will get purified and make us qualified to chant Shuddhanam. All the sinful reactions will be destroyed. In fact, Nama Bhasya stage is the stage of liberation, chanting in liberation. That's how glorious is Nama this here, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is not going to discuss here. E paryanta, e stale, balite pare, e shastriya shraddha artat, शुद्ध शरणागतिर सहित कृष्ण नाम उच्चारित होइले नाम है. In this regard, I can say this much. Estale bolite pare, that when the holy name of Krishna is uttered with faith in scriptures, Shastriya Shraddha, we saw this, Laukik Shraddha and Shastriya Shraddha, Artat, Shuddha Sharnagatir Sahit, that is pure surrender unto Lord Krishna's feet. Krishna Naam Ucharita Hoile Naam Hai. It is the holy name that is being uttered. So here he says that one who is taking the Naam with Shastri Shraddha and with a pure surrendered consciousness that I want to surrender to Krishna. So that is what? That is the holy name. So that's what he says. Anya Bilashita Yukta Va Jnana Karma Yoga Vairagadi Dwara Avrit Ye Naam Taha Namabhas. The holy name which is connected with the pursuit of extraneous desires. Extraneous desires is Anya Abhilashita Yukta, covered by Jnana Karma Yoga Vairagya. Va or Jnana Karma Yoga Vairagadi Dwara Avrit. Avrit means covered. Ye Nama Taha Namabhas. So on is a reflection of the holy name. It is not the holy name, it is the reflection of the holy name. So there is difference between taking the holy name and the reflection of the holy name. Now this is a very, very deep science. And again, please don't ask me any questions here. Because only when we discuss the Harinam Chintamani, then only, devoting at least 3-4 classes, I feel, on Namabhas, then we can understand what this is. So it is just a reflection of the holy name. That's it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that much. But whatever he is speaking here, I will try to explain. Namabhase mukti paryanta faloday hoila Vaishnavara mukhe namabhas ucharita hoy na Shuddha Naam Ucharita Hoy. Though one can attain results up to liberation by uttering. नामाभास से मुक्ति पर्यंत फलोदय होय. Mukti paryanta means up to liberation. That means in liberations also there are different gradations. In Harinam Chintamani, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that even one can attain Vaikuntha. So even I'm trying to understand how it is so. So I'm just asking my senior God brothers also to have some discussions on this. That is there in Harinam Chintamani. But generally, by Namabhas chanting, one can attain liberation. The results up to liberation is saying. The reflection of the holy name, Namabhas. The reflection of the holy name is not uttered in the mouth of a Vaishnava. Vaishnava Mukha Namabhas Ucharit Hoy Na. It is the pure holy name that is uttered by him. Shuddha Naam Ucharita Hoy. So a Vaishnava chants Shuddha Naam. Whereas those who are contaminated with these other philosophies, as I was explaining about this Ramdas Vipra, who was traveling along with Raghunath Das Goswami, he was taking the name of Lord Ram, but Lord Ram's name was not coming out. It was just the abhas of Lord Ram's name. And he had the desire of liberation. So they cannot take the name. They can take only the reflection of the name. So devotees, Vaishnavas, they chant Shuddhanam. And we saw 3 levels of devotees, Vaishnava, Vaishnavtara, and Vaishnavtama. And we saw this very interesting discussion which Bhaktivinoda Thakur had. And again, I'm going back so that we understand. Shuddhanam, a new devotee who has just taken up to chanting and might once take the pure name. He's Vaishnava. And one who chants purely constantly, he is Vaishnavtara. And one who inspires others to chant purely is Vaishnavtama. So this discussion we had a, elaborate discussion here, which we have seen, that here, this footnote, we had a long discussion that even one occasionally chants the holy name, he is a Vaishnava. And when he chants the holy name without offenses, uninterruptedly, he is a better Vaishnava. And when the pleasure potency of the Lord manifests, he is the best Vaishnava. So this we had this discussion. So Vaishnavas take pure name either once or regularly, and they can inspire others to take pure name by giving initiation. The Mahabhagavats can do that. Yes, there is one question. That means Namabhas is not the best. It is Shuddhnam. Is it right? Yes. Actually, by chanting, by going from the Namaprad stage, you come to the Namabhas stage, and Namabhas stage, our chit is purified so that we can take Shuddhanam. And we should remember, only by taking Shuddhanam we can get love of Godhead. By chanting Namabhas, we cannot get love of Head. By chanting Namaprad, we cannot get love of Head. Only by Shuddhanam. So, yes. So I hope this is clear what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here. Okay. No, I was here. Yeah, I was here. So let me again go back to the slide discussion. Yes. So, pure name. Namira Swarup Gyan. Nam Namira Abhinnatva Buddhi. Jivera Shuddha Chit Indriya Namera Utpatti Stan Anubhavera Dwara Ye Nam Ucharita Hoy Taha Nam. So what is this name which he takes, this Vaishnava, Shuddha name? Only that holy name, which is uttered with the direct experience of the knowledge of the constitutional nature of the holy name. Namera Swarup Gyan. Nama Namira Abhinnatva Buddhi, the awareness of the non-difference of the holy name and the holy named. Nama Nami. And the appearance of the holy name on the spiritual senses of the soul is the holy name. जीवेर शुद्ध चिद इंद्रिय नामेर उत्पत्ति स्थान अनुभावेर द्वारा ए नाम उच्चारित होय ताहा नाम. So what is this name now? When it is uttered from actually the spiritual platform, the soul's platform, and that name manifests on the tongue has been completely spiritualized, and that name which you're taking is when the avidya is destroyed. So as long as avidya is not destroyed, what is there? We have disease condition. And just like a jaundiced person, although he's taking sugar candy, he's not feeling it tasty because of the jaundice disease which is there in the deep-rooted system. Ayurveda says the root of all disease is stomach. So similarly, we are taking the name, the root of all our disease is avidya, which is rooted in the heart. So we don't have taste for chanting. And because we don't have taste, we can understand that avidya disease is not yet gone. So when avidya is destroyed, what happens? Then we get taste for chanting. And that chanting is the name. So this avidya, slowly after nishta, ruchi, asakti, and at the stage of bhava, at the stage of asakti, avidya is destroyed. Bhakti destroys papa and punya. Bhakti destroys the very bija, the desires of sin, and bhakti also destroys avidya. Sadhana bhakti is so powerful. So slowly, all these benefits, Kleshagni is there. Kleshagni has these three things. Kleshagni means what? Klesha is because of bija, papa, and avidya. And papa are because of prarabdha and aprarabdha, karmas. And bija is the sinful tendency to commit sinful activities. That is bija, the sinful desire. And avidya, deep-rooted ignorance about our spiritual identity. So by sadhana bhakti, kleshagni, which is one of the characteristics of sadhana bhakti, all these three are destroyed. Papa, both prarabdha and aprarabdha, then bija, the sinful desires to commit sin, and avidya. So at the end of sadhana bhakti is a very long range from shraddha, sadhu sangha, bhajan kriya, anarth nivritti, nishta, ruchi, asakti. This is sadhana bhakti, in which there is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raganuga sadhana bhakti. And Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is from shraddha to anarth nivritti at least. From nishta onwards, we take up to Raganuga, but still we follow Vaidhi. And slowly, more raga or impelled by greed happens, propensity to practice devotion. And slowly with ruchi, asakti, we are propelled by raga, attraction, spontaneous devotion we practice. And at the stage of bhava, actually our devotion becomes spontaneous. So only the name which is taken by the spiritual senses. So the senses get fully spiritualized at the stage of bhava. And that is the holy name. So this is very interesting for us to know now. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinam Chintamani, he mentions Nam Akshara Loy, Nam Na Loy, he says. Only the Aksharas are coming out, the name is not coming out, he says. And to give you a graphic example, children, sometimes parents give them, a gun, machine gun, and they load the bullets and they, the children play, they hit, and the father is there as a target. And when they hit the bullet goes and fires the father, and the father says, "Oh, I'm hit by the bullet," and he collapses. But those bullets are fake bullets. They don't have the potency to kill someone. Similarly, Namapra chanting is like, just taking the names, Nam Akshar, Nam Na Loy. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So we have to cross this stage of, Namaprad and at least come to the Namava stage where we can become qualified to take actually the holy name. Any questions you can always ask, raise your hands. Tad Rupa Ek Naam Yahara Jivaya Uday Hoy Ti Ni Vaishnava. He on whose tongue such holy name has appeared is a Vaishnava. So here again, higher definition of Vaishnava. He is the Mahabhagavat, in fact, in one sense. One who chants, this name from the spiritual platform or from the spiritual senses. Soumya has asked one question. Yes?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Tanat Pranam. It's a Virendra, though. Sorry, bro, name is wrong. Prabhuji, my
I'm surprised.
Prabhuji, what do we understand by spiritual senses of the soul?
What do we understand by the spiritual senses of the soul? Now,
Just last-
before we go into the spiritual senses of the soul, let us understand the spiritualized senses of the body. That is the tongue, the eyes, the ears, the external organs, and the internal, organs are there. The subtle organs are present in the chit also. So, when we take up to the spiritual path, when the pure faith of Shraddha is sown in the seed of the heart, and we take up to Shravan and Kirtan, the senses now are material. They are like iron-like, it is said. Vishwanath Chakravarti says. Why they are iron-like? Because they go towards sense objects and entangle us. But slowly these senses get spiritualized. Because there is Bhakti Lata in the heart, the Bhakti Devi is residing in the heart, and we have taken up to the Shravanadi Jal. We are giving it, the Bhakti Lata, the hearing and chanting. So slowly the Bhakti Lata is, growing in the heart in the form of Lata, and it is growing up in the higher directions to the spiritual world, to Golok Vrindavan. So slowly by hearing, chanting, the body gets spiritualized. And Prabhupada gave the standard example of iron put in fire. When the iron is in fully touch with fire, actually the iron melts also, and the iron color also changes. And although this iron has no potency to, ignite, grass or whatever is kept aside, but if you take that iron rod and touch to the grass will catch fire, because now it has acquired the qualities of fire. Similarly, the devotee fully absorbed in hearing and chanting over a period of many years, slowly his senses also get spiritualized. And the external senses, the eyes, and the Antakaran has got purified. With Namabhas chanting, the Antakaran has got purified. And the senses, whose nature is to go towards sense objects, now they go towards only Krishna. So we can also understand how much our senses have spiritualized by how much our senses only go towards Krishna and not anything in this world. So at the stage of bhava, these senses get fully spiritualized, and in sadhana bhakti they are in the process of getting spiritualized. We keep the iron in touch with fire by the Shravanadi Jal or hearing and chanting, but again we keep the rod out. Again the fire will doze down. So we have to repeatedly always be in touch with the fire. That is to very strenuously and uninterruptedly do the practices of sadhana bhakti, and slowly the senses also get spiritualized. Now the second aspect is the soul has its spiritual senses. It has its spiritual eyes, the spiritual ears, the spiritual body also it has. But now the soul, it is covered by the gross and the subtle bodies. And by this process, the spiritual senses also will uncover, and the spiritual form of the jiva will be revealed. At the stage of bhava, it is revealed what is our spiritual form in the spiritual world, what is our spiritual rasa with Krishna, whether it is dasya, sakya, vatsalya or madhurya. And we start actually relishing rasa, bhakti ras, highest bhakti ras we start relishing. So Prabhupada gave again a very standard and simple example of just like we have this body which has form, but now it is covered by coat and a shirt. So there are undergarments and outer garments. So Prabhupada said the undergarments, like the banyan, is like the subtle body, and the shirt is like the gross body. So the gross and the subtle bodies cover the soul. So when the gross and subtle body, coverings are destroyed by the practice of bhakti, then the spiritual senses, spiritual, body of the soul is awakened, and that happens, at a elevated stage by practicing sadhana bhakti. Is it clear, Prabhuji? Okay. So there is Ashray Yoga Prabhuji. You'll have to check with your mic system, audio system.
Audible, Prabhuji? I'm audible?
No, there is still a lot of disturbance. No.
Yes, is it okay?
Yeah, better.
So, I'm audible, Prabhuji, it's clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So, Prabhuji, my earlier questions was regarding that you discussed about the difference between, just sorry, I have written somewhere. Let me.
Yeah, I see there is a lot of background disturbance.
Destruction
Prabhuji,
of.
there is a lot of background disturbance from your end, and it is difficult for me to concentrate on a question. I would prefer if you could type it in the chat box and we will take it at the end. Any other questions about Nam and Namabhasya? Very briefly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has mentioned here, but again, Harinam Chintamani, he goes into a lot of details. He on whose tongue such holy name has appeared is a Vaishnava. नाम उदय होते होते समस्त प्रारब्ध o prarabdha papa shay hoy. While the holy name arises, all of one's prarabdha and aprarabdha sinful reactions are destroyed. Uday hoy amritara prema udita hoya pade. As soon as it arises fully, love of Godhead awakens. So this is only what he touches here briefly in Vaishnav Ninda about Nama and Namabhasya. Maya Narasimha Prabhuji, you have a question?
Oh, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, the discussion is going more into holy name. I just wanted to know that how Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to connect this with ultimately with Vaishnava Ninda, because the very beginning it is said that one who is chanting the holy name somehow or other is to be considered as a Vaishnava. So why, I mean, like it's going into so much in depth of describing various types of chanting when we are talking about Vaishnava Ninda.
Yes, yes. Even I had this question in my mind. Thank you for asking. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the beginning of his essay, had established that two things he will be discussing because this Vaishnava Aparadha is so detrimental, so dangerous. So I will be analyzing two things. Who is a Vaishnava and what constitutes Vaishnava Aparadha? So who is a Vaishnava? In order to establish this, all this discussion he had for so long. For so long, all the discussion was who is a Vaishnava. So that is why please be careful that anyone who has just taken up to the chanting of the holy names, suddenly, maybe one day he might suddenly take one name which might be a pure name. Once he might take that name, but he should be considered as a pure Vaishnava. This is the standard Bhaktivinoda Thakur is setting up, and this is the standard what Srila Prabhupada is setting up in his purports also, if you saw. That is why I went into the purports to establish this. So we should understand who are Vaishnavas. So once we know that these are Vaishnavas, we should offer respects and not commit Vaishnava Aparadh. And what will be Vaishnava, what constitutes Vaishnava Aparadh will be the discussion in the next themes. Because this Vaishnava takes name, not Namabhas, so that is why he's glorious. And that is why a small discussion came about what is name and what is Namabhas, what is Nam and what is Namabhas. So that was a small discussion which came up. But now onwards, after discussing who is a Vaishnava from Bhagavad Drishti, from the angle of Bhagavatam, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially from the holy name perspective. Now Bhaktivinoda Thakur will come to the subject. So a long discussion has happened about it, but now he'll come to the subject in the next theme. In the next theme, he will come to this discussion. Now, again, I have to share the screen, but it is already suddenly went off the connection. So any other questions? Akshay Kokil, Krishna Patru, do you have any question? Okay then. So we will wind up today because it's already 8:13 and 8:15 we stop. Okay, there is one more question. Okay, I will take up this question.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna,
Mataji.
Prabhuji. Yeah, Prabhuji, we have heard it many times, even just before some time, you also mentioned that a pure name come after Anarth Nivritti, when we get Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti. After going through all this, then at that step we will get pure holy. We will chant Shuddha Nam. But there are incidents then when we feel very much when we go to holy dham or somewhere and we chant that one name. You said that one name. So is that name, one name was Shuddha Nam or Namabhas?
Okay. Yes. Two things I would like to make clear here. Firstly, is when we have taken up to chanting, we are, or I don't know about others, but we might be in the Namaprad stage. But while in the Namaprad stage, we have understood, that this is a process, chanting. By this, I get, some effect of the chanting in the name of I give up my sinful habits and I take up to Vaishnavism. And we might suddenly, out of the blue, one name, maybe in the Holy Dham, or one day when we are chanting, suddenly I feel a surge and have some realization, oh, the holy name is completely transcendental, it's completely spiritual. So one name we might take like that. This is, when Anarth Nivritti is happening. But after the stage of Anarth Nivritti has happened, then we, start taking the name very fixed, and we are now quite purified because anarthas are gone, and this will help us to take Shuddhanam. So after Anarth Nivritti, it is more like we are taking the Shuddhanam. And at the stage of Bhava, where the Ladini Shakti has entered the heart, we are able to instill in people to take the holy name. So this is the three stages in which we take Shuddhanam. First is in the beginning stages, where we are a Kanishta Adhikari, we can say, or we are in the Namapra stage, where rarely once we might take the Shuddhanam. When we are in the Dham or on some festival day, one chanting we do, and maybe tears come out of our eyes, which has never happened to us. Rarely, few times it must have happened for us in few years like that. That it's not that once I take the holy name and tears start pouring from my eyes. when Mahaprabhu told, who is it, Narayani, the niece of Srivas, take Krishna's name. And she called out Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And what happened? Tears started rolling from her eyes and she fell in ecstasy in the ground. So that name she was taking is directly Shuddhanam. Because of Mahaprabhu's potency, he could directly give her Shuddhanam, Krishna Prem, and she was a liberated soul. She's, not a liberated soul, you can say. She was a pure soul who is from the pure spiritual world only. So that is directly Shuddhanam. So my point is that rarely we might take Shuddhanam because Shuddhanam will manifest all these Ashtasattvic vikars. But at Namabha stage or at the Madhyamadhikari stage, when the Chit has become pure, we are taking Shuddhanam continuously from Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti stages. But at the Bhava stage, Ladini Shakti has entered and we are able to impregnate others to take up the holy name. We have got that Shakti. So these are the stages we go through in the chanting. Is it clear?
Yes, Guruji. Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions anyone has? Okay, so we will stop here, and the next theme will be very, very important theme, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to speak. Why he has spoken so much of the glories of the holy name and the glories of the Vaishnavas who take to Shuddhanam either once or regularly or able to give Shuddhanam to others. These are Vaishnavas, and how we should see these Vaishnavas, and how do we deal with these Vaishnavas so that we know now who are Vaishnavas so that we don't commit Vaishnava Aparadh. So that he is going to now start the discussion, and that's the next theme which we will take up next week. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.